Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that the US dollar, the currency that's ruled the world for over 70 years, is suddenly worth half of what it was yesterday. Your savings, your retirement fund, everything denominated in dollars, cut in half overnight. Sounds like a nightmare, right? Like some dystopian movie plot? But here's the terrifying part. Central banks around the world are already preparing for exactly this scenario. They're not waiting for the collapse. They're positioning themselves ahead of it. And the signs are everywhere if you know where to look. China has dumped over $300 billion in US Treasury bonds in just the past few years. Russia liquidated nearly its entire dollar reserve in a matter of months. Saudi Arabia, the nation that literally created the petrodollar system, is quietly diversifying away from American debt. And they're all doing the same thing with the money they're pulling out. They're buying gold. Mountains of it. Tons upon tons of physical gold being shipped into central bank vaults from Beijing to Moscow to New Delhi. This isn't a coincidence. This isn't some random financial trend. This is a coordinated global shift away from the dollar system, and it's happening right now, in real time, while most people aren't paying attention. The world's financial powers are making a bet, a massive, all-in bet, that the era of American economic dominance is ending. And if they're right, everything you think you know about money, power, and global order is about to be rewritten. So here's the question you need to ask yourself right now. If the smartest financial minds controlling trillions of dollars are dumping US debt and hoarding gold like it's the end of the world, what do they know that you don't? And more importantly, what happens to you when the rest of the world figures it out? Let me take you back to 1944. World War II is still raging, but the Allied powers already know they're going to win. So they gather in a small mountain town in New Hampshire called Bretton Woods, and they redesign the entire global financial system. The deal is simple. The US dollar becomes the world's reserve currency, backed by gold at $35 an ounce. Every other currency is pegged to the dollar. If you want to trade oil, buy machinery, settle international debts, you do it in dollars. America becomes the central bank of the planet. And for the next 3 decades, this system works beautifully. Until it doesn't. By 1971, the US has printed so many dollars to fund the Vietnam War and domestic spending that foreign governments start getting nervous. France literally sends battleships to New York Harbor to demand their gold back. So President Nixon does the unthinkable. He closes the gold window. No more gold backing. The dollar is now just a piece of paper backed by nothing but trust in the US government. And here's the genius part, it still works. Why? Because oil. In the mid-1970s, America cuts a deal with Saudi Arabia. You sell oil exclusively in dollars, and we'll protect your kingdom with our military. The Saudis agree. OPEC follows. Suddenly, every country on earth needs dollars to buy energy. The petrodollar is born. And even without gold backing, the dollar remains king because it's the only way to power your economy. For 50 years, this system has been the foundation of American power. But that foundation is cracking, and the people who built it are the ones tearing it down. Let's start with the numbers, because the numbers don't lie. In 2013, China held over $1.3 trillion in US Treasury securities. Today, less than $800 billion. They've reduced their holdings by nearly 40%. Japan, the largest foreign holder of US debt, has also been quietly reducing its position. Russia went from nearly $200 billion in US treasuries to less than $10 billion almost overnight. Saudi Arabia's holdings have dropped steadily for years. These aren't small adjustments. These aren't routine portfolio rebalancing moves. This is a mass exodus. And it's not just the usual suspects. Countries you wouldn't expect, like India, Turkey, Brazil, are also cutting their dollar exposure. Meanwhile, global central bank gold purchases hit a record high in 2022 and stayed elevated through 2023 and 2024. We're talking about hundreds of tons of gold being bought every single quarter. China's central bank has been adding gold to its reserves for months on end without pause. The People's Bank of China isn't publishing exact numbers anymore, which tells you they don't want the world to know how much they're accumulating. Russia has become one of the largest gold producers and buyers in the world, tripling its reserves over the past 15 years. Even Poland, a NATO member and European Union country, has repatriated its gold from foreign vaults and doubled its reserves. When a U.S. ally starts hoarding gold, you know something big is happening. This is a global movement. It's not one country acting alone. It's a coordinated shift, a realignment of financial strategy across dozens of nations. They're all preparing for the same thing. So why is this happening? What changed? The first reason is simple. Trust is breaking down. For decades, holding U.S. treasuries was considered the safest investment on the planet. It was the definition of a risk-free asset. You park your money in U.S. government bonds, you get a small return, and you sleep well at night knowing your wealth is secure. But that belief is eroding. The U.S. national debt has exploded. We're now over $34 trillion in debt and climbing fast. Every year, the government runs deficits in the trillions. The debt-to-GDP ratio has blown past levels that used to trigger alarm bells. And here's the kicker. There's no plan to fix it. Both political parties spend like drunken sailors. Defense budgets, entitlement programs, interest payments on the debt itself, it's a runaway train. And foreign creditors are starting to ask a very uncomfortable question. Will the U.S. ever be able to pay this back? Or more precisely, will the U.S. pay it back in dollars that are actually worth something? Because here's the dirty secret of sovereign debt. Governments don't default by refusing to pay. They default by inflating the currency. They print more money, pay back their debts in devalued dollars, and the creditors take the loss. It's a soft default, a quiet theft. And foreign governments know this. They've seen it happen throughout history. Weimar Germany, Zimbabwe, Argentina, Venezuela. The playbook is always the same. So when they look at America's debt load and money printing, they see the same warning signs. And they're getting out before the trap closes. The second reason is geopolitical weaponization of the dollar. This is huge, and it's something most people completely overlook. The United States has increasingly used the dollar as a weapon. If a country doesn't play by America's rules, the U.S. can freeze assets, block transactions, cut countries out of the SWIFT payment system, impose sanctions that cripple entire economies. And Washington has been doing this more and more aggressively. Russia felt this firsthand after the Ukraine invasion in 2022. The U.S. and Europe froze $300 billion of Russian central bank reserves. Think about that. Russia held its national savings in dollars and euros, parked in Western banks, and with the stroke of a pen, that money was confiscated. It doesn't matter whether you think the sanctions were justified. What matters is the message it sent to every other country watching. The message was clear. If you hold your wealth in dollars, in Western banks, in the Western financial system, it can be taken from you at any time if the U.S. decides you're an enemy. That's not a reserve currency. That's a hostage situation. China saw this and realized they could be next. If tensions over Taiwan escalate, if the U.S. decides to go after China economically, Beijing could wake up to find $1 trillion of its reserves frozen. So what's the rational move? Diversify. Get out of dollars. Move into assets that can't be confiscated by a foreign government. Gold sitting in a vault in Beijing can't be frozen by Washington. It's physical, sovereign, untouchable. The same logic applies to other countries. Iran, Venezuela, North Korea, they've all been cut off from the dollar system. They've been forced to find alternatives. And even countries that are still U.S. allies are watching nervously, realizing that the weaponization of the dollar makes it a liability, not an asset. The third reason is the rise of BRICS and the desire for a multipolar financial system. For decades, the world order has been unipolar. The United States set the rules, and everyone else followed. But that era is ending. China has become the world's second largest economy and in some measures the largest. Russia, despite sanctions, remains a major energy and commodities power. India is rising fast. Brazil and South Africa represent major emerging markets. Together, these 5 countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, form BRICS, and they're actively working to create an alternative to the dollar-dominated system. They're not just complaining about American financial hegemony. They're building the infrastructure to replace it. The BRICS nations have launched the new development bank as an alternative to the World Bank and IMF. They've discussed creating a BRICS currency or payment system to bypass the dollar. China's Belt and Road Initiative is financing infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe, often in yuan instead of dollars. Russia and China have been settling trade in their own currencies for years now. Saudi Arabia, the cornerstone of the petrodollar, has started accepting payment for oil in yuan. Let that sink in. The country that made the petrodollar possible is now taking Chinese currency for oil. This isn't just symbolic. It's a fundamental crack in the system. If oil can be bought in yuan, or rubles, or any currency other than dollars, then the primary reason countries needed to hold dollars evaporates. And once that happens, the demand for U.S. treasuries collapses, and the whole game changes. The fourth reason is inflation and currency debasement. Here's a fact. Since 2020, the United States has printed more money than in the previous 2 centuries combined. The Federal Reserve's balance sheet exploded during COVID, pumping trillions into the economy through quantitative easing, stimulus checks, corporate bailouts, you name it. And what happens when you flood the market with new money? Inflation. The purchasing power of every dollar in existence gets diluted. Prices skyrocket. The cost of food, gas, housing, all of it goes up because there are more dollars chasing the same amount of goods. Now, the U.S. government and the Fed will tell you inflation is under control, that it's transitory, that they've got it handled. But foreign central banks aren't buying it. They see the money supply charts. They see the fiscal deficits. They understand that the U.S. is in a debt trap where the only way out is to keep printing money and let inflation quietly erode the real value of what they owe. And if you're a foreign government holding $1 trillion in U.S. treasuries, that's terrifying. Because it means the value of your reserves is being systematically destroyed. Every year, your dollars buy less. Every year, the real return on your investment is negative after accounting for inflation. So what do? You sell the bonds. You get out of dollars. And you buy something that holds its value. Something that's been a store of wealth for 5,000 years. Gold. Gold doesn't rust. It doesn't decay. It can't be printed. Its supply is limited by geology, not government policy. When currencies collapse, gold endures. It survived every empire, every financial crisis, every hyperinflation in history. And central banks know this. That's why they're loading up. The fifth reason is the erosion of U.S. economic and political stability. Here's an uncomfortable truth. The world is losing confidence in America's ability to govern itself. The political system is polarized beyond function. Elections are contested. The Capitol was stormed. Trust in institutions, government, media, even the Federal Reserve, is at historic lows. Congress can barely pass a budget without threatening to default on the debt. The country is increasingly divided on fundamental questions about democracy, rights, and the rule of law. From the outside looking in, this looks like a superpower in decline. A giant tearing itself apart from within. And if you're a foreign government deciding where to park your national wealth, that instability is a massive red flag. Add to that the economic warning signs. Wealth inequality is at levels not seen since the Gilded Age. The middle class is shrinking. Homelessness and drug crises plague major cities. Infrastructure is crumbling. Meanwhile, China is building high-speed rail networks, new cities, and leading the world in green energy technology. The contrast is stark. Foreigners are asking, is America still the safe bet? Or is it a declining empire clinging to past glory? And once that doubt sets in, once the aura of invincibility fades, the money starts moving. Because money is a coward. It runs at the first sign of danger. The sixth reason is the practical math of reserve diversification. Let's get technical for a moment. If you're a central bank, your job is to manage your country's foreign exchange reserves. You want those reserves to be safe, liquid, and stable. For decades, that meant U.S. treasuries. They were the deepest, most liquid market in the world. You could buy or sell billions without moving the price. But there's a problem with putting all your eggs in one basket. If something happens to that basket, if the dollar crashes, if U.S. interest rates spike, if geopolitical tensions explode, you lose everything. Modern portfolio theory says you should diversify. Spread your risk across different assets, different currencies, different geographies. And that's exactly what central banks are doing now. They're reducing their dollar concentration and adding euro-denominated bonds, yen-denominated bonds, gold, and even some cryptocurrencies in a few experimental cases. This isn't about hating America. It's just smart risk management. But the effect is the same. Less demand for U.S. treasuries, downward pressure on the dollar, and more buying pressure on alternative assets like gold. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The more countries diversify away from dollars, the riskier dollars become, which causes more countries to diversify, which increases the risk further. We're watching a slow-motion bank run on the dollar's reserve status. The seventh and final reason is the ultimate endgame, the return to hard assets in a world of fiat uncertainty. Here's the philosophical heart of what's happening. We live in an age of pure fiat currency. Money is no longer tied to anything real. It's created out of thin air by central banks and backed only by government promises. This system has worked for 50 years because of trust, momentum, and military power. But all three of those pillars are weakening. Trust is eroding as governments prove unable or unwilling to control spending. Momentum is shifting as new powers rise and old alliances fray. And military power, while still dominant, can't prop up a currency forever if the underlying economy is faltering. So the world is slowly, cautiously, quietly moving back toward hard assets. Things you can touch. Things that exist independent of government decree. Gold is the ultimate hard asset. It has intrinsic value. It's globally recognized. It can't be hacked, inflated, or confiscated easily. In a world where trust in institutions is collapsing, gold is the anchor. And central banks, the most sophisticated financial players on the planet, are betting that the future belongs to those who hold real wealth, not paper promises. They're preparing for a world where fiat currencies are worth less, where the dollar's dominance has ended, where power is measured not in debt instruments but in tangible reserves. They're preparing for a reset, and they want to be on the right side of it when it happens. So let's connect the dots. You have massive U.S. debt and money printing destroying confidence. You have the weaponization of the dollar making it a political liability. You have the rise of BRICS creating alternatives to the dollar system. You have inflation eroding the value of dollar-denominated assets. You have U.S. political and economic instability scaring off investors. You have the rational need for reserve diversification pushing central banks to reduce dollar exposure. And you have a philosophical shift back toward hard assets and away from fiat experiments. Every single one of these forces is pushing in the same direction, out of U.S. treasuries, into gold. This isn't a conspiracy. It's not a coordinated attack. It's rational actors responding to rational incentives. It's game theory playing out on a global scale. And the consequences are going to be enormous. Because here's what happens if this trend continues. As foreign demand for U.S. treasuries drops, the U.S. government has to find other buyers. That means either the Federal Reserve steps in and prints more money to buy the bonds itself, which is just more inflation, or interest rates have to rise to attract buyers. Higher interest rates mean the U.S. government has to pay more to service its debt. With $34 trillion in debt, even a small increase in rates adds hundreds of billions to the annual budget deficit, which means more borrowing, which means more debt, which means even higher rates to attract buyers. It's a debt spiral, and at some point, it becomes unsustainable. At some point, the market loses faith entirely, and that's when the real crisis hits. Meanwhile, as gold demand from central banks surges, the price of gold climbs. We've already seen gold hit record highs in recent years, and this is just the beginning. If the dollar loses its reserve status, if a true global currency crisis unfolds, gold could go to levels that seem insane today. $5,000 an ounce. 10,000. Who knows? Because in a world where paper money is failing, gold becomes the ultimate safe haven. The people who own it will preserve their wealth. The people who don't will watch their savings evaporate. And here's the uncomfortable part for most people. You probably don't own any gold. Your retirement account is in stocks and bonds, denominated in dollars. Your savings are in a bank, denominated in dollars. If the dollar collapses, you're wiped out. But the central banks, they'll be fine. Because they saw this coming and positioned themselves accordingly. The elites always do. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. This sounds like doom and gloom. This sounds like paranoid conspiracy theory nonsense. But look at the evidence. Look at what's actually happening, not what you're being told. China is dumping treasuries. Russia has liquidated its dollar reserves. Central banks are buying gold at record pace. BRICS nations are building alternative financial systems. These are not opinions. These are documented facts. The data is public. The trend is clear. The only question is how fast it happens and how severe the consequences will be. Will this be a slow, managed decline where the dollar gradually loses its dominance over decades? Or will it be a sudden, catastrophic collapse that happens in a matter of months? History suggests it'll be somewhere in between. Empires don't fall overnight, but when they do fall, it happens faster than anyone expects. The Roman Empire took centuries to decline, but the final collapse was swift. The British Empire slowly faded after World War I, but the pound lost its reserve status in a matter of years. The same could happen to the dollar. And the people in power, the ones with access to the real information, are making sure they're protected. They're buying gold. They're diversifying into hard assets. They're positioning themselves for a world where the rules have changed. The question is, are you? Because here's the brutal reality. The system isn't designed to protect you. It's designed to protect the elites, the central banks, the government insiders who see the crisis coming and make sure they're on the right side of it. You're the one left holding the bag. You're the one whose savings are in dollars that are losing value. You're the one whose retirement is tied to a stock market that could crash if the bond market implodes. You're the one who's going to wake up one morning and realize the rules changed overnight and you weren't invited to the meeting where they decided. But you can't say you weren't warned. The signs are everywhere. The central banks are screaming at you through their actions. They're dumping US debt. They're buying gold. They're preparing for a world after dollar dominance. And if you're paying attention, if you're willing to see what's right in front of you, you can prepare too. Not with panic, not with fear, but with rational, informed decisions about how to protect your wealth in a changing world. So what does this all mean for you? For your future? For your family's financial security? It means you need to start thinking like a central bank. Diversify. Reduce your exposure to pure fiat currency. Consider holding some gold, some silver, some assets that aren't denominated in dollars. I'm not saying sell everything and buy gold bars and bury them in your backyard. But I'm saying don't be the last person holding the bag when the music stops. Because the music is already slowing down. The dance is almost over. And the smart money has already left the floor. The question is whether you'll follow them or whether you'll keep dancing until the lights go out and you realize you're alone in an empty room, holding worthless paper, wondering how you missed all the warning signs. The world is changing. The financial order that's existed for your entire life is coming to an end. And the people who understand that, who accept it, who prepare for it, are going to be okay. The people who don't, who keep trusting the system, who believe the government will take care of them, are going to get crushed. It's that simple. So pay attention. Watch what the central banks do, not what they say. Follow the gold. Because gold doesn't lie. Gold doesn't print propaganda. Gold is cold, hard truth. And right now, the truth is telling you that the empire is crumbling, the dollar is dying, and a new world order is being born. You can either prepare for it or be a victim of it. The choice is yours. But let me be clear about one more thing. This isn't just about money. It's about power. The country that controls the reserve currency controls the world. It can print money to fund its military, its wars, its empire, and export the inflation to everyone else. It can sanction enemies and reward allies. It can borrow without limit because the whole world needs its currency. That's been America's superpower for 70 years. And that superpower is fading. As the dollar loses reserve status, America loses the ability to project power. It loses the ability to run trillion-dollar deficits without consequences. It loses the ability to live beyond its means. And that means the American standard of living, the American global dominance, the American century, all of it is coming to an end. This is not about rooting against America. This is about recognizing reality. Empires rise and empires fall. It's the cycle of history. And right now, we're living through the fall. The rest of the world knows it. They're positioning themselves for the next chapter. The rise of China. The rise of a multipolar world. The return to hard money and sound economics. They're getting ready. The question is whether you are. Think about what happens in your own life when this shift completes. Gas prices could skyrocket as the petrodollar dies and oil is priced in other currencies. Imported goods could become insanely expensive as the dollar weakens. Your salary, denominated in dollars, could lose half its purchasing power in a few years. Your retirement account, invested in dollar-based assets, could be decimated. Everything you've worked for, everything you've saved, could be wiped out not because you made bad decisions, but because the entire system you trusted collapsed underneath you. That's the stakes. That's what we're talking about. This isn't some abstract economic theory. This is your life, your future, your family's security. And the people who run the world are already making moves to protect themselves. They're not waiting for permission. They're not waiting for the mainstream media to tell them it's okay. They're acting. And you should be too. The truth is, most people won't do anything. Most people will read this, feel a vague sense of unease, and then go back to scrolling social media and pretending everything is fine. Most people will keep all their money in the same system, trusting the same institutions, believing the same lies. And most people will lose everything. But you don't have to be most people. You can be the one who saw it coming. The one who took action. The one who protected your wealth while everyone else was asleep. It's not too late. Not yet. But the window is closing. Every month, more central banks dump treasuries. Every month, more gold gets locked away in sovereign vaults. Every month, the transition accelerates. The smart money is moving. The question is whether you'll move with it or get left behind. And here's the final, most important point. This isn't just about surviving the collapse. It's about understanding the world you live in. It's about seeing through the propaganda and recognizing that the people in power don't have your best interests at heart. They have their own interests. And they will sacrifice you to protect themselves every single time. The system is not designed to help you build wealth. It's designed to extract wealth from you and transfer it upward. The inflation tax, the debt trap, the devaluation of your savings, it's all intentional. It's all part of how the game is played. And the only way to win is to stop playing by their rules. Own assets they can't print. Own things that have real value. Own gold. Own land. Own skills and knowledge. Own things that will matter in a world where the dollar is worthless. Because that world is coming. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year. But it's coming. And when it does, the people who prepared will thrive, and the people who didn't will beg for scraps. So here we are. You've just spent the last several minutes diving deep into one of the most important financial shifts happening in the world right now. You understand why BRICS is dumping US debt. You understand why gold is the ultimate hedge. You understand that the elites are preparing for a world after the dollar. And now you have a choice. You can close this video, forget what you learned, and go back to pretending everything is normal. Or you can take this knowledge, do your own research, and start making moves to protect yourself and your family. You can start thinking critically about where your wealth is stored and whether it's really safe. You can start questioning the narratives you're fed by the media and the government. You can start acting like the informed, intelligent person you are, instead of a passive victim waiting for disaster to strike. The battle for the future of money is happening right now. The old guard is trying to cling to power. The new powers are rising. And in the middle of it all, billions of ordinary people are going to win or lose based on whether they understand what's happening. You now understand. You're ahead of 99% of people. The question is what you do with that knowledge. Will you act? Or will you wait until it's too late? Because I promise you, one day you're going to look back on this moment and wish you had listened. Wish you had prepared. Wish you had taken it seriously. Don't let that day come. If this video opened your eyes, if it made you think, if it made you realize just how serious the situation is, then do me a favor. Share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this. Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Are you already preparing? Are you buying gold? Or are you still skeptical? I want to hear from you. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve, if you want to keep learning about the financial earthquakes shaking the world, then subscribe to this channel. Because we're not done. This is just the beginning. There are more stories to tell, more secrets to uncover, more truths the elites don't want you to know. And I'm going to keep bringing them to you, one video at a time. Thank you for watching. Thank you for thinking. Thank you for caring enough about your future to spend this time learning. The world is changing, and you're now part of the small group of people who actually understands what's happening. That makes you dangerous. That makes you powerful. Use that power wisely. Protect yourself. Protect your family. And whatever you do, don't go back to sleep. Because the storm is coming. And only those who see it will survive. See you in the next one.